Well, gentlemen, so good to see you here. We were talking off camera. When I first talked to you about this, you didn't have this cast. You hadn't filmed all of this yet. Before we get into all that, talk about The Shift. What is The Shift?
So The Shift is a sci-fi thriller that is about an ordinary guy named Kevin who's having a hard time in his job, hard time in his marriage, and basically on the worst day of his life, he's approached by a mysterious stranger who calls himself the benefactor. And the benefactor has some special powers, and he can put Kevin into some interesting, wealthy, and powerful positions if Kevin will make a deal with him. And so the film very much is about that confrontation between Kevin and the benefactor, and kind of the consequences of tussling with a guy like that. Kevin ends up getting banished to a parallel world, and where he fights to get back to the woman he loves.
Wow. So he basically was dancing with the devil.
A little bit, yeah.
Wow. Well, it sounds incredible. It sounds very interesting. Yeah. Sci-fi thriller. That's, I don't know if it's a first, but it's definitely a new genre for people of faith to yes. kind of go out and support. Talk about that, wanting to reach the faith audience with stuff like this. That's cool, fun. We all do really enjoy it. Talk about that, getting the faith community on board with this.
I think it's one of the elements that first drew me to the project was the very freshness of it. And in a genre of films that, yes, asks big existential questions about ultimate truths, Brock wrote a story that provides such a unique path into those considerations. And I hope that the audience will like the new territory that we're mining here. And it's come with some storytelling risks.
Yes.
But I'll report from the editing bay that it's bearing great results.
Wonderful. Well, I saw a little teaser a second ago, and I'm extremely excited. I mentioned a little earlier when we first talked, you didn't have the cast that you have now. Yeah. That's amazing. I'm excited to see it just because I respect a lot of this cast as well. Yeah. Talk about getting them on board and just their take on what you guys put together.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that we wanted to do with this is put together a really strong cast, because this is something that is a little different than what people are used to. But at the same time, it's also very familiar territory. You know, a sci-fi and a thriller. Sci-fi is one of the most popular genres on the planet, and a lot of the actors that we have even come from the sci-fi space. You know, guys like Neil McDonough and Sean Astin coming from the fantasy space and sci-fi with Stranger Things and all of that. Right. And even Chris Palaha, our lead, you know, who was just in Wonder Woman and Jurassic World Dominion, and right. you know, it's and so these guys, I mean, from what they said, it came down to the script. It came down to reading the script and seeing that we were doing something that was a little new, a little different, but also familiar enough that they could wrap their heads around it in the same way that I think that audiences will. And so they came on board on the strength of that.
You know, I've had the honor of actually interviewing all of them. I just thought about it as you were talking, and I know they all are men of faith, and I love that. And I heard somewhere, and I don't know, you would tell me best, that the story is kind of loosely based on Job. Is that true, or kind of how does that play into it?
Yeah, so it is kind of inspired by the book of Job. You know, Job was the kind of guy, he was a guy who, he starts off his story as a believer. He's somebody who we don't really know much about him before the story starts, but we know that he is firm in his faith. Yeah. And, you know, Kevin's not quite that at the beginning of the film, but very quickly he does have an experience in which he knows that God is real, and he knows that faith can be rewarded. And what's interesting to me about the story of Job is that it's not about somebody coming to faith. It's about somebody who already has faith and then is challenged in a way that is hard for most of us to imagine. Yeah. And so I was very interested in putting that on screen. Like, let's take our guy Kevin. Let's show him, you know, the love and mercy of God, and then let's take it all away. Yeah. Or at least make it seem like we're taking it all away at the very least. And then what happens at that point? How does he get through that? Why do we, even though we believe, why do we pass through such severe trial? If we've already achieved a measure of faith, why then are we challenged further? And that's kind of the question that Kevin is asking himself. And that's the question that I wanted to explore. And I think we we end up in a pretty unique place with that exploration.
Yeah, and it's definitely a great exploration. I think we all are actively living that, right? We're like, life still gets hard, but we have hope, which is great. Neil is such a good bad guy. He's just such a good bad guy. He plays a bad guy in so many things, and he's such a good bad guy. So I'm really excited to see him in this film. In that role, he's just so wonderful at it. Was there any moments while filming that you guys kind of had a moment where you felt like the supernatural enter into what you guys are doing here in the sci-fi thriller realm?
That sounds like a producer question.
Yeah, I would. There were a couple of key moments that, in hindsight, appear to have been providential in the shaping of our telling of this story. And one was our almost last-minute pivot from one metropolis in the southeast, Atlanta, to deciding to shoot the film in Birmingham, Alabama. And Brock and I and part of our team rolled into Birmingham after a few hurdles in Atlanta, and just knew immediately with real strong confirmation that this was where we were supposed to tell this story. And the city of Birmingham rolled out a red carpet for us and provided such a welcoming, working environment that it was clear that that's where we were supposed to be. And the other one is, Brock and I had a wonderful several-month-long process of casting this film. It was really one of the most invigorating aspects of the shift coming together. But whether it was a test of our faith or endurance, we didn't quite crack our leading man until the 11th and a half hour.
Yes.
But again, much like moving to Birmingham, we saw almost immediately that Chris Palaha, from the word go, was the guy who was supposed to play Kevin Garner. So again, it's really rewarding to look back and see God open the right doors and close other doors.
Yeah. Well, in the Atlanta move, I mean, the move to Birmingham, that was 2 months before we started shooting. So it was a major pivot. We've been focused on Atlanta for a year. And then, as you say, Chris just is extraordinary in the role. I can't wait for audiences to see what he does.
Yeah, me neither. I can't wait to see it myself. Talk about being men of faith in this world where you create and you deliver content this way.
Yeah, so for me, I'm a huge fan of sci-fi. I'm a huge fan of movies, obviously, and I see everything I can. But I don't often see myself represented very well in the movies that I love the most. Sci-fi, usually the stories exist in a world in which God does not, and faith is kind of punted off to the side. Not always, but mostly. And so I was just really interested in, what does it look like for me to be a storyteller, to be a filmmaker? What kind of stories can I tell? How can I stay true to who I am? And for me, telling stories that's true to who I am is probably going to have some element of faith. But if I want to tell the stories that I want to tell that are most exciting to me, that means going off into a genre that people don't usually associate with belief. And so to me, it makes sense. It's natural. It may be different and odd, but it's something that makes a lot of sense to me, and it's something that I feel. I think duty bound is the wrong word because that makes it sound like it's medicine I'm taking. It's not really that, but it's something that I feel, driven to do, called to do, and so it makes sense for me, and thankfully people are responding well.
Love that.
My take on it, Jeannie, is I'm often the last guy to slap a label on what we're doing or a genre in which we're working, and I'm not a big advocate of waving big flags, but it's part of why it's a joy working with Brock on the shift is hopefully we created an environment and a working methodology and a way of assembling and interacting with the team that spoke louder than any words, any proselytizing words. Everybody has a different calling in that regard. But we didn't stand this up trying to lure in our actors saying, come be a part of our inventive faith film. We said we're going to tell an important story that has important things to say, and we want to do it in a way that's going to be great for everybody involved. And so that's, God willing, how I like to live it out and experience. Telling stories for a living is a beautiful gift, to get to work in the creative arts. And oftentimes there's a lot of anxiety and stress and toxicity around that, but I do believe it's possible when we're grounded in something more important to create an environment that's rewarding for all involved. And hopefully the shift was marked by that.
Yeah, I think so. The reports I hear are good from set.
Well, that's it, creating the environment, and that's beautiful. That'll speak for itself for sure. Yeah. Last thing, you guys, obviously there is an audience for this. You partnered with Angel Studios. People are obviously backing this up, so there is an audience.
Yeah.
It's not just you. Talk about that, having an amazing partnership like that with Angel Studios, having supporters already on board, excited to see this.
Yeah. Well, a typical movie, I mean, the first time you hear about it, unless you're like me and you're a total nerd and you're just, combing the trades for news every day. But typically you hear about a movie about 3 weeks before it opens. We've been working on this for a few years now with Angel. And there's a lot of power in that. We have people who are not only excited, but who have actually invested their money into helping us make this film. And that doesn't just give us an investment, that gives us an audience. And that I think has been one of the greatest things to come out of our partnership with Angel Studios. I mean, not only are they incredibly supportive in trying to tell stories that amplify light, which our film falls right into that, but they are about audience connection. And so we're bringing a film to market. We will be bringing a film to market that already has thousands of people who are waiting for it. And I think that's exciting. That's a new way of doing things. Yeah. And how can't I be excited by that? All we want as filmmakers is to create something that people see.
Right. And
here we are, almost a year away from it releasing, and we already have a lot of people who are waiting to see it. That's great. That's the best.
Right. That's it. That's the goal.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. You already are creating the diehard fans, and they haven't even seen the product yet. That's really amazing. Yeah. Well, guys, I believe that this will be blessed, and God will use it, and I'm excited to be entertained and also inspired. Thank you.
Can we touch on one more thing real quick?
Yeah, please.
Just if I can take
Do
it.
it.
It's been really great to link arms with Angel Studios on this. Evidently, they have a show about the New Testament.
Yeah, some show there. I think I've heard about it.
That has a bit of a following, but it's been great to bring a couple of key actors from The Chosen into our film. And
that's so cool.
And they're all great, but of particular note, Liz Tavish, who plays Mary Magdalene on The Chosen, is our female lead in The Shift, and it's an altogether different look at Liz, but she just shines so brightly in this film and shows so many layers of beauty and anguish and hurt and hopefully healing. But it's going to be a great new look, and it's exciting to know that the Angel audience is looking forward to seeing this film. So we couldn't be more happy than to be in this studio environment.
Awesome. Yeah, Angel Studios has created like a community amongst even the creators. That's just really awesome. You can't beat that. It's just it's creating what I feel like we're supposed to be as believers. So love that. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks, Jeannie.